Welcome back to Five Friday Feedback. I hope you had a chance to go and listen back to Monday's episode where we started off on the road to investing, how to invest smart for financial independence. That was only part one because we do have part two coming. What we got from Monday's episode, the real thing that I wanted to be able to impart upon our listeners was that investing for financial independence, investing for success is a long-term play, not a short-term play. I think it was also really important that we made sure that we told people that they have to invest. And we did go off the rails a little bit where Dominic asked me the question, what is inflation and why does inflation happen? To which we didn't have show notes for, so I just kind of winged it. But it's imperative that we do invest our money in some sort of an asset, because I know that there's unfortunately kind of two groups of people. There's groups of people who are good with money, who are really good at making money. And then there's a group of people who are really good at investing money. And unfortunately, it seems to be an or. But if you can be that person that can make that an and, if you're good at making money and you're good at investing, you're going to be pretty damn unstoppable. So Dominic, what did you think about Monday's episode? Do you have any show notes that you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we have a fresh new podcast, Chris, I'm curious to see, start off where we left off, right? So the Federal Reserve, right? Where does money come from? Just kidding. I'm totally just kidding. We talked a little bit about the Federal Reserve and the whole conversation about why they print money a little bit off the podcast. And we kind of decided that it is such a deep rabbit hole that it's not something that can be explained in a 60-second blurb. You almost need not even a podcast. You need an entire book on that. And you recommended me a book actually to help understand that. Would that be a good book for the general population as well? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. The book that I recommended to you was The Creature at Jekyll Island, or The Creature of Jekyll Island. I can't remember the exact wording on that. But the book is really about how the Federal Reserve came to be. And it's kind of a fiction, nonfiction story, because obviously we weren't there to like really witness it, but it's kind of an account as to what most likely happened from the actual records of what did happen and a little bit of fluff to add it in there. But it's just a book about how the Federal Reserve came to be and how did we end up in our current monetary system where our money is backed by nothing more than decree. And that's what fiat means. So when someone says, oh, we're on a fiat currency, you want to buy Bitcoin because it's non-fiat, fiat just means by decree. So our government says that our money is worth this, and if you don't believe us, we will bomb you. That's basically how our monetary system works economically. It's all, unfortunately, a power game on who has the most power to be able to back up their statements with action. And that is how the entire economic system works.
That's kind of why we have such a large military budget as well, if I'm not mistaken.
They're not going to say that, but yes, that is the reason.
Gotcha. Walk tall and carry a huge stick. Gotcha. Love it. So we started talking a little bit about why it was so important to start investing. And if you haven't gone back and listened to that episode, I highly recommend it because there's a lot of good gems in there. And it's a very inspirational episode to really, it's a good jumping off point when it comes to investing, right? What are some of the things that we talked about that were kind of your favorite about that, Chris? Was it like learning a little bit more about the risk to reward? Was it more about the, controlling your emotions when it comes to like the roller coaster of investing? Or was it, just keeping pace, right? And getting your head above water? Because a lot of people believe it's like, well, I can't invest now because I don't have any extra money. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. But really, if you're just keeping your head above water and not investing, you're actually sinking because inflation is eating away your buying potential, your buying power.
Yeah, we have a system that is really set up to make people fail unless they know what they're doing. And that's the reason that we have the podcast, is try to teach as many people that you might be doing all the right things to what your parents, your grandparents, your society told you to do to be successful. And I think that's why there's so much anger right now in the system. Both people, right, left, it doesn't matter what your political view is, your religious view, your economic view. Everyone is just angry. And I think everyone's angry because they were sold a bag of lies. They were sold, if you go to school, get a good degree from a good college, put yourself in this much debt, you will be successful. And even those that are quote unquote successful and killing it still feel like there's something wrong. I don't understand why I'm making money, but it's buying less every single time. And what we kind of brought up in Monday's podcast, which we didn't expect to, was it's because of inflation. It's because of these currents underneath us, which doesn't matter how hard you swim against the tide, the current will win. And that is what's going on underneath the surface that people are unaware of. So that's what I'm trying to bring to in just a little bit here in the podcast so that people can kind of understand that. But the biggest thing when it comes to investing is that you don't have a choice. There are too many people that I meet who are like, Chris, I just want to make money. I'm not going to spend a lot of money, and I just want the rest of it to basically be buried in my backyard. And I think that's going to be my strategy. And unfortunately, once we start to introduce inflation, when we introduce these other things that people aren't aware of because they think they're being safe. My money's in the backyard. It's buried in a box. Like it's super, super safe, Chris. And yes, that's true. You'll have the same amount of money in 10 years, but will that same amount of money be able to buy what it can today? Because just like how compounding interest works for you for your investments, works against you for your debt, it also works against you in terms of inflation. If inflation is at 7% a year, that means that your buying power loses half of its buying power every 7 years or every 10 years. And that makes it very, very difficult to keep up. So you have to invest just to keep up. Investing doesn't put you ahead. It just keeps up at this point. Dominic, I know that you had a thought as I was kind of ranting there.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, one of the things about this podcast that I love is, right, you're the master, I'm the student. I'm acting as the audience and being their great shepherd to really kind of guide them and ask you the questions I think that they might want to know. And you're going to hate this next one. But is there a possibility, right, that we can have negative inflation or deflation? I mean, I know everything's always getting more expensive. The dollar is always getting weaker, it seems like. But is there a point in history, or maybe is that a thing that we can kind of get back any of that buying power?
Yes, the chances of it happening are very, very low. So Ray Dalio would describe this as a beautiful deleveraging. Unfortunately, it's only happened once in history that a country was able to come back from the brink. It happened with Japan back in the 1980s. But Japan has a very different culture than we do in America, and their ability to have austerity measures was greatly exacerbated just because of the way that their government and their people are. America is not like that. So the chances of that happening are pretty low. One of the big reasons that we were hoping that things were going to change was under the Republican administration, they say they were going to cut spending, that they were going to get back to fiscal responsibility. And what we've seen thus far is that they're just not. They're just going to say that they are and just continue doing what they're doing, which is printing money, spending more, and taxing less. The only way for us to get out of the death spiral that we are in is to cut government spending and increase taxes, which both of those things are just not okay to do. Our current administration might be okay with cutting the government, but they are not okay with cutting with increasing taxes. So we cut the government and we decrease taxes. Again, it's a null point unless we do both things simultaneously, and we need to grow our GDP, meaning that we need to become more productive, which ideally, and this is the idea, I think, AI will be able to help us. Because if we can make energy free, then we'll be able to move out of this. But again, in all of history, this has never happened, minus one time. And in all of history, we have never had AI been able to help us to maybe be able to figure out physics to teach us how to get to a new point that I can't even begin to fathom right now. So is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? No. And this is, I think, an important thing. Most people think when an empire falls, if America is no longer the reserve currency, does that mean that we end up like blowing up and disappearing? No, it doesn't. There have been times that Europe was the great power, the great reserve power of all of the world in terms of economics. And now they're like second, maybe third behind China now, but that's still okay. They're still alive. And that's what America most likely is trending towards. These waves happen in 150-year increments. And they happen in a cycle around 4 different cycles. Ray Dalio, who has made all of his money based off of knowing these trends and knowing where we are in the trends, puts us at the edge of stage 4, somewhere in that range. Now, we can't determine exactly where we are, exactly what's going to happen, because no one knows what the future holds. But this is the reason that we have to invest. This is the reason that we have the podcast, to focus on the more important things than just investing, to focus on making money, to focus on saving money, and more importantly, to focus on living the best life that you possibly can and having money get out of the way so that you stop focusing on money being the thing that's stopping you from living your life. Because it's not money, it's you. Money helps. Money is a great facilitator, but it's not everything.
So if someone wanted to get started in investing, right, where would you kind of steer them right off the bat?
I would steer them first to opening up a brokerage account. Now, I would like for them to maybe to open up an IRA, a traditional or a Roth or something like that. But a lot of times that's really scary for people, because when you open up those accounts when you're younger, that money essentially is locked up until you reach a certain age, 59 and a half. Now, of course, there are things like in your Roth, you're able to take the money out that you put in since it already is post-tax, but that's getting beyond itself. But with a brokerage account, that means that the money that goes into it, you can take out at any time. And the only thing you pay taxes on is the gains that were accrued during that time. And again, we will get to this in later podcasts of the FI Crash Course, what all these different accounts mean. That will probably be a longer podcast just because it has to be, because there's so much information. But we will get to all of that. But the first step is to open an account and then to put as much money as you safely can in there to learn how to invest. I'm not saying invest it quite yet. We'll get there on what to invest in on next week's episode, on next Monday's episode. But for right now, just to be able to have the account to be able to do it, so that when you are ready, you can do it. Rather than you being ready and having to go through all these steps, I want when the feeling strikes you to be able just to go and do it. Because that's how I got started. It was I watched a YouTube video and some guy told me, like, after this YouTube video, go and do it. And I did it. And that's what kind of started me down this whole path. And that's what I want to be for somebody else.
Interesting. Didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Well, is there any other final things you would like to mention on Monday's episode? I know we do a little bit of a recap on Friday's episode, so it's not a full episode, but is there any recap you wanted to leave off with the viewer?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that the market is a roller coaster. And if you zoom in really close and you look at stocks and what's going on in the market, it's going to look like someone who is going through heart palpitations. It's moving up, down. It's all over the damn place. It's going to flatline occasionally, and then it's going to go back up, and then it's going to go back down. And that is really scary, because when you invest, you are putting your life energy into these investments. And when I say that, I know it sounds kind of woo-woo, but if you understand that the way you get money is by giving your time, the one non-renewable resource that you cannot get back, you give your time for money. Therefore, your energy, your life energy is in the form of money. When you put that into the stock market and you watch your life energy go up and down all over the damn place, it's completely something out of your control entirely. It is very scary. So I get why people don't want to do it. And with the Federal Reserve doing what it is, with inflation happening, with the government printing money, regardless of what we want to say as citizens, you have to. So the best thing you can do is take a wider perspective and view it on a longer timeline. Because on a long enough timeline, the stock market, historically over its 120 years of being in existence, has trended up. And the day that it only trends down, we will have bigger problems than your retirement. At that point, we're confiscating people's wealth. It becomes a revolution type situation where it doesn't matter how much money you have unless you have the ability to get out of the country. And again, that is a risk, and that's a very different risk than what we're talking about here on the podcast. If you're worried that we're moving in that direction, I understand it. Maybe you can buy a gun. Maybe you can buy some canned food. Maybe you should have 2 weeks worth of water in your house. I think all of those are wonderful ideas. And you need a plan for the future being good. Don't just plan to have a bunker and live, I don't know, off MREs for the rest of your life when you don't have to.
Well, thank you for that take. I think it's a very interesting take. I think it's a solid take. I think it's an actionable take. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to our next part of the podcast. No, we are not finished for today's episode. We got a lot left to come. Welcome back, because this is our FI Friday feedback viewer mailbag section of the podcast. It's where someone in the community writes into us, whether that's on our email or on our website, both of those linked down below in the description. And we try and help them out, try and give them a little bit of advice. Usually it's financial advice, but sometimes a little bit of a relationship and worldly advice as well. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. So, today's letterhead says, did I ruin my 20s or buy my freedom? Interesting. Well, let's find out. Howdy, Fi Guys. I'm in my late 20s, and honestly, I've never really been much of a spender. I get zero thrill from dropping money on the latest gadgets or paying for overpriced cocktails. But when I unexpectedly received an inheritance from my family's will, I was faced with a choice that made me pause. Most of my friends would have used that money to upgrade their lifestyle. You know, move into trendy downtown apartments, finance a new shiny SUV, maybe even take a couple big vacations. Instead, I did something that in their eyes was absolutely insane. First, I wiped out the rest of my car loan. Gone. No more monthly payments hanging over my head. Then, I bought an $8,500 trailer in a well kept trailer park, paid in full. No mortgage, no rent. My home might not be Instagram worthy, but it's clean, it's comfortable, and it's mine. And here's where the judgment started rolling in. Now, when my friends come over, some can't hide a smirk. I've heard some comments like, why would you want to live like this? You're young, go have fun. One of my friends even asked if I was okay financially, as if being debt free was a crisis. But here's what they don't see. They're dropping $1,800 to $2,500 a month on rent for apartments they'll never own. I'm banking an extra $2,000 every month because I have no rent and no car debt. I can buy good food. I eat out whenever I feel like it, and I'm watching my savings grow and grow. I'm not living off ramen, though, for the record, I love ramen. And most importantly, I'm not lying awake at night stressing about bills. Is my setup flashy? Not at all. Does it scream success on social media? Definitely not. But it gives me something way more valuable, and that's peace of mind and the freedom to make choices without money calling the shots. So here's my question to you. Did I make a boneheaded move that I'll regret in a few years? Or did I just buy myself a head start on financial independence? From parked my cash, skipped the flash, now that my debt's all gone, freedom is on. Well, how about that? I think you need to get some new friends. I'm going to be honest with you. I think you need to get some new friends. Your friends sound like pricks, honestly. Maybe they need to listen to the pod more. We can straighten them out. Yeah, we definitely agree. Living for today is important. We love that. We love living for today without forgetting about tomorrow. It seems like your friends might be forgetting about tomorrow just a little bit. And it seems like you're planning for tomorrow and still enjoying today. So you're right on the right track. But I'm curious, Chris, what do you have to say about this whole situation?
You know, there's an old interview with Charlie Sheen back when he was kind of going off the rails. And the interviewer says, Charlie, like, how do you feel that you're doing? He just goes, winning. And that's what I think about this guy. It's just winning. And it's his version of winning, which I think is really cool. I think that most people, your friends included, bro, when they see your lifestyle, they say for themselves, like, this isn't my lifestyle, therefore your lifestyle must be wrong. Because implicit in your lifestyle, if you enjoy it, you're saying that my lifestyle is incorrect, which you're not saying at all. But that's the way that unfortunately it's perceived by people. So to our listener, first off, I just want to say you're already ahead of the curve, man. You're in your late 20s, I don't know, 27, 28, 29, and you're not buried by debt. You're not living paycheck to paycheck. You've just removed the two biggest monthly expenses, which are housing and car payments. And that's not crazy in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it's extremely strategic. What I think you're struggling with right now is, how do I ignore the social status noise? Because it sounds to me like your friends are judging you based on appearances, not outcomes. And 10 years from now, when they're still living paycheck to paycheck and you've built up some serious savings, and more important than serious savings, serious options, then who gets to laugh? I'm going to bring it back up to Dominic's point where it comes to, you need to get new friends, dude. or just stay off of social media, because both things are not real. Like, I get your friend who's saying like, hey man, I just want to make sure everything's okay, because they don't know your finances. In truth, no one knows what's going on in anyone else's life. We just have to see and believe what's going on, but only they know. Only you know what's going on behind the curtain. And what you know is that you bought your freedom, not just a trailer. No rent means that all the income that you keep is yours. Yours not just to save, but to invest, to build your skills, to enjoy life on your terms. So I hope that you've listened to if you listen to this podcast, I'm guessing that you listen to the podcast. Hopefully listen to Monday's podcast. If you wrote in, you should be listening. Hopefully you listen to Monday's podcast. You're not just saving that, but you're also investing it. You're investing it to build skills. You're investing it to grow your wealth. You're investing it just to keep up with inflation. But you're investing all of it to live life on your terms. Because right now, in late 20s, you have an extra $2,000 a month. That is a wealth building lethal weapon. Even if you put it at like a modest 7% annual return, investing that consistently will lead to hundreds of thousands of dollars in the near future and millions in the long term. I mean, that's $24,000 a year that you're saving. You can put some of that into an IRA, put some of that into a brokerage account. If you have the ability to put it into your work 401k or 403b or 457, if you don't know what any of that means, we're going to get there in the FI crash course. You could save some serious money for retirement. Or you can have some amazing adventures right now. It's completely your choice. And that's the cool part about financial independence. There's not a right way, but there is a wrong way to do it. There's just different ways. So what you've set yourself up for is for flexibility. If you decide in a few years that, hey, this trailer thing isn't for me and I want a home, with what you're doing right now, you'll be able to make that move without the financial stress. Because you're not locked into a big mortgage. You're not locked into rent. And I'm not going to say that renting what your friends are doing is throwing money away, because it's not. You are getting a service for paying money. I hate that adage of renting is throwing money away, because it in no way, shape, or form is. I've never gone to a restaurant, paid for my food, and be like, I just threw my food money away. But that's the exact same thing that people think when they're renting. You are getting a service for paying for payment. And right now, with mortgage costs the way they are and interest rates the way they are, renting is honestly a really good option for most people in most of the country. Living below your means is your superpower. Most people can't pull it off, not because they don't want to, but because they're chasing an image over making impact in their lives. You're playing a long-term game. You've taken a wider perspective, and it will pay off. So it sounds to me like you already have a joyful place, which is cool. You're eating well. You're doing what you want. You're living not in deprivation, but in a sustainably frugal way that works for you. And that's the only thing that matters. Does it work for you? And F whatever other people say. As long as you're happy, that's what really matters. Because one day your friends may come around later, often the same people who are laughing at you right now, and they're going to ask you, how did you do it? And at that time, you get to tell them exactly how you do it, exactly how you did it. And that's what we do here at the podcast, is I'm trying to tell you how I did it. And it was by sacrificing for years and years and years to be able to have the propensity to take months off of work, to take years off of work, to be able to build a company, to take time to travel, to do all these fun things because of sacrifice that I did in my 20s. So right now in your late 20s, you need to keep leveling up yourself, not just financially, but also your skills. Try to become a master of none. You've handled the first step, which is the hardest step, eliminating your major debts. Now you get to focus on building an investment plan so your money works for you and not the other way around. So my final verdict to you is what you did was not stupid in any way, shape, or form. It was bold, it was intentional, and most importantly, it was rare. And it's rare that most people won't understand it until it's too late for them to do the same. That's so cool that you made that choice now, but please be sure not just to live a smaller life than you have to. Please be sure to find that balance. And I don't know what the balance is for you of living for today and living for tomorrow, but you need to be able to have both things competing in your mind all the time. That balance, that push and pull, that yin, that yang, that's where life is held. somewhere in the messy middle, somewhere in the gray. And it sounds like you're figuring it out for yourself, and you're only in your late 20s. You have a long way to go, and it sounds like you're setting yourself up for a really fun life. So good job to you. I hope you continue to listen to the podcast and continue spreading the word of the Fi Guys to bring more people along the journey so they can be just where you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why we talk about the power of making smart decisions and really compound interest. Because if he took that 2000, right, and invested it 7%, after 30 years, he'd have over $2.4 million, right? And that's at 7%, right? Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Well, we wish you the best of luck and continue making great choices. And we're going to move on to win of the week. Chris, what do you have for your win of the week?
Yeah, so my win of the week is that Bryn actually just started her new job this week, and she is loving her team. She's loving the commute. She's loving the animals and the clientele that she's meeting. So my win really is that she started a new job, and how lucky we are to be able to both take a month off of work this past month, where we just focused on traveling, spending time together, seeing friends, and just kind of reacquainting ourselves to the San Diego area.
Well, that sounds like a very beautiful win of the week. I'm glad that you two are doing well and enjoying yourself. And I'm glad that things are really turning around and doing so awesome in San Diego. I mean, that's super exciting. For my win of the week, I've got a few win of the weeks actually. So I'm excited to report that it has been a great week. And it's going to be a great rest of the month too. So for my win of the week is we've got new videos coming out on the gaming channel, which I'm super excited about. There's been a bit of a lag there in the last year or so. So I'm excited to continue releasing new content over there, as well as new content on the vlog channel, which I'm super excited about. As far as in home, we made some amazing chocolate muffins that I thought turned out pretty well. As a little going away thing for a buddy of mine, but he should be back. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. As far as anything else for my win of the week, I'm learning this new skill. It's called Unreal Engine. It's a program that games are built on, but also it's used for film and TV, which I'm really excited about. So what I'm hoping to do with after I'm finished with this course is use that new skill of building virtual environments and use it in my live streams, use it in my talking head videos for my main channel, possibly even on the gaming channel, and maybe even a new background for me here on the podcast. I think it'd be really interesting for me to switch to a whole new scene when it is time to do the viewer mailbag. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So we'll see what comes out of that. But yeah, that's going to be it for me and my win of the week. So I'm really excited about that. And if you guys have any wins of the weeks, feel free to drop them down below. Chris and I would love to hear about them. We'd love to see them. And that's going to be really it for us on our episode today. If you have anything else you guys want to share, please drop them in the comments. Don't be afraid to email us or check out our website. All of that information is linked down below in the description of this video or podcast, wherever you're listening to it. That being said, make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You know the deal. You've been here a million times. But with that being said, I'm Dom. He's Chris. We're the Fi Guys. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Later, guys.
Later. This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.